Hey YouTube, Alex here with Alex's Comments, and so in this video, if you couldn't tell by the title, I'm going to be explaining my honest thought and review on the HerpStat 2 Redline. I've had this thermostat just over a year now, but I originally got it just because I wanted to have a different thermostat. I heard these were some of the higher end ones, top of the market. This is no different than their HerpStat 2 model, I should say. Those of you that are looking to purchase a HerpStat, this is just a fancy color variation they do. The unit itself is pretty nice. The one thing that I do like is that you can have a password on it. And so after you enter your password, then you can go into your different outputs, system setup, reset your password, safety, and whatnot. If I go into the system setup for reference, if I enter, set all this stuff, the Redline, they call it that because got a cool glow system. I personally keep it off though, just because I think it looks cooler with just the red display. And I can exit if I want to go back. The other thing that's really nice is, so since this is a HerpStat 2, there's two outputs, output 1 and output 2. And so right now I'm using these outputs to control my corn snake enclosures. For example, if I go into output 1, this is the one that is running the ceramic heat emitter in my cages enclosure. So I can run a night cycle drop if I want to. I've got high and low alarms set, so that way I know that these cages that I'm running are staying at the temperatures they need to. You can even adjust your sensor to fit your thermometer. Say you've got one of those nice WeatherTech ones, and you can see after you're not on there, it exits the menu. Of course, right now my room's fairly warm, so my heating sources are not on, but that's one thing that I really like that the HerpStat does compared to, say, a Jump Start or Inkbird, or even like those Zilla on-off ones that I was using. The HerpStats actually regulate the amount of power going to your heat source. And that's something that I think only a few thermostats do. Very seldomly do I find that my heat sources, be it, if I'm running my heat tape on my rack system, or in this case, these display PVC enclosures, I've got ceramic heat emitters in there. This really is just like the stat. And as I've said, I've worked with a lot of thermostats between using Jumpstart and Zilla on-off stats in my personal collection. The Reptile store I work at, I care for a ton of snakes there. I'll throw in some photos of all the awesome enclosures and rack systems I set up, and we've run HerpStats, we've run Vivarium Electronics, I've run Inkbird on and off stats on my BOA display enclosures we've got there. So I think it's safe to say I've spent quite a decent amount of time between using thermostats on my reptiles at home and then of course trying out different ones on the snakes I care for at my job. Overall, I just have to say the thermostat itself it's blown me away compared to some of the other stuff I've used. It's precise. I definitely like that it's very specific, energy-wise. While this is a much more expensive thermostat, I can definitely say I'm not using as much electricity to heat my enclosures as I once were. The other thing that I'll have to say, I'm just going to set this down, is I'm a big fan of the way their back is designed. So excuse the cords. They increase the number of outputs per model, and I really like that because I hated having to find outlets to plug each and every single thermostat in. Say a HerpStat 6, you could quite literally run an entire segment of caging on that, and it would only take up one outlet in your wall. And I love that. It makes it clean, it makes it nice, it's really professional, and they're kind enough to leave the labels right there, so that way that, say output 2 is plugged in right here and it's on this heat source. It's small little details like that that just shows how much time and effort Spyder Robotics has taken into making a thermostat like this, and I don't think that's appreciated enough in the hobby. People just trying to make little bits easier, more efficient. As I was saying, I'm a really big fan of efficiency when it comes to keeping reptiles. I try not to overthink things. I like that I can set this up, get all my settings configured, and then forget it and trust this to run my enclosures. It really is that simple. I'll set the thermostat down right here. But say, here's my 3-foot cages enclosures. There's hash right there. The probes, they're stainless steel, which I'm a huge fan of. I really like these probes because the stainless steel transfers and loses heat a lot quicker than plastic. When I had been working with those Zilla on-off stats or the Vivarium Electronics, those probes are black and made of plastic. So a black probe, if you're sitting that under, like, say, a heat source, granted that's my UV light, this is my heat source, the ceramic, a light sitting on this, it's not going to retain the heat from a basking bulb and overheat and give you a false reading. This is going to be much more efficient, which again, I'm a huge fan of. If say you're using this for a diurnal basking species like a bearded dragon, the thermostats have a dimming option, and you can utilize that to ensure that your bearded dragon's basking spot stays at 115, 120 degrees, what have you. My reptile room is pretty warm, so I have the probe dangling in the air, set to 78. It's a warmer day right now. We've got the heat on in the house, so the air is 81 degrees, and this ceramic is not even running. I can feel it's nice and warm. The UV light alone reflecting on here, if I were to take my temp gun, I guarantee you it usually sits around like 83, 84 up here. So now the corn snake has a basking spot. He's got access to shade and a bunch of the hides I have here. And so you're able to truly perfect that thermo gradient while making sure everything stays nice and precise with that HerpStat. And again, it's just one reason why I'm a huge fan of it. And so with that being said, I'm just gonna close this enclosure and hop right back up here. So you can see even now, so that enclosure is on output 1. Even me holding that probe, it heated up in my hand. So now it's reading 82 degrees, and now it's slowly starting to cool back down. Cons, I have none. These things really are worth the money, and in my opinion, probably the best thermostat I've used so far in my reptile keeping career. As you can see right next to it, I've got a HerpStat 1 just because I like this so much. I took my albino corn snake, who I'm growing out in a tub right now, I took him off of an on-off stat, and I just bought a HerpStat 1 off of my friend because he had it, he was looking to sell it, and I figured, why not? These things are just seriously freaking awesome. So yeah, that is my review of the HerpStat 2 Redline. Really, like I said, it's worth the money. It's around $200, I believe, so pricier than some of the more quote-unquote affordable options, but when it comes to, as far as energy consumption, precision, and honestly, I just think, aesthetics, this really is probably the best thermostat on the market right now as far as the reptile hobby is concerned. If you like this review, leave a like. Let me know what you guys think in the comments if you're using HerpStats by Spyder Robotics. And until then, this has been Alex of Alex's Agamids, and I'll see you in the next video. Adios.